Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Bama Standard, and we are brought to you by Workspace Pros and Michael Petyak of Oakmont Financial Partners. I'm your host, Justin Riley. With me, as always, is a living legend, Mr. Marvin Constant, and another living legend who toted rock every Saturday and made people cry. If they say his name, they probably piss down their leg. Bo Scarbrough, and the senior analyst of Touchdown Alabama Magazine, Stephen M. Smith. What up, fellas?
What's up? Hey, Justin. Justin, did you take that knife from Coach 30?
Yeah. I can't say that I made up on my own. So yeah, I did. Well, glad to have y'all here this week, fellas. What's going on? What's up, Martin?
Nothing much. What's going on?
Man, we got a legend here with us, and normally we do constant chaos before we bring on our guests, but this is a guy that can't be kept waiting. So I feel like he should take part of this. Stephen M. Smith would be the hype man that you are and introduce this man.
Okay, so we're talking about somebody right here that needs to seriously, college Hall of Fame, if y'all can hear me right now, Hall of Fame, get this man in. Hall of Fame, if y'all can hear me, get this man in. We are talking about one of the, if not the greatest linebacker, defensive end-like hybrid to play in the Alabama football era under Paul Bryant. Get this man in the Hall of Fame. We're talking about the one-man wrecking crew known as the respected, the beloved, the honorable E.J. Jr. in the house.
By the way, I taught him everything he knows. He was that good because of me.
Marvin, you don't even want to go there, Marvin.
First,
were you even born when I was playing? That's the first question. So I'm trying to figure out how you probably weren't even born yet.
That may be true.
First of all, Stephen M. Smith, this man.
How you doing? It's great to be back.
Man, first of all, man, think about that intro. If you ever want to be announced anywhere, this is the guy that you need to have following behind you.
I tell you what, between The Rock and the one who does the boxing, I'm like, I think he might have a chance. He got possibilities. I really appreciate the intro. I really do.
First of all, Stephen M. Smith, this man already is in the Hall of Fame. So all the pleading you just did, it's already happened. So congratulations.
How you didn't see that, man? If anybody's seen it, I know you seen it.
Look, I saw it. I was just adding more pleading in case there's another Hall of Fame he can get into.
He was just basically he's doing a prelude for my mentor who finally got in. Been pushing for him to be in the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. He got in, and now he's going into the College Football Hall of Fame. So you did a great one if it was going to be Sylvester Croom, but I'm grateful nonetheless.
No doubt. Well, first of all, let's go ahead and talk about that. We didn't talk about that enough last time you were with us. Man, congratulations on this honor. You definitely have the resume. You have everything it takes to be considered as one of the elite, one of the greatest of all time. Man, if you would, if you tell us, what kind of emotions did you have when you finally got that for the announcement that you were in?
Well, it's been about 2 years. I actually got it before 2020, in July of 2020 when I received the football in the mail, and that was surprising because I didn't get a call. I didn't get any kind of notice. My son basically picked up the mail off the porch and brought it in, and he says, "Dad, that's for you." And I'm like, it said for E.J. Jr. I said, "No, that's probably for you. I didn't order anything from Amazon or anything like that because they are always ordering stuff." He said, "Dad, I think this is for you." So I take it and I open it, and there's a football and it has my name. Matter of fact, this showed up in the mail, and I'm looking at it. And when I look at it, it says E.J. Jr., University of Alabama. That's all I saw on it. Didn't see the National Football Foundation. And I kept looking at it, and it said December the 8th, 2020, and I'm going, December the 8th, 2020 hadn't even gotten here. First of all, it's my birthday. So I'm going, this is a
nice.
birthday present, early birthday present. Then I looked at it again, and there's a note in there that says, congratulations, you're being inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. And I almost just fell to the ground like, wow, it's about time. But, it was a relief. I've been nominated the previous 5 years, but I was really humbled. When it finally hit me, I was truly humbled because of the fact that when you think about the guys who've gone in, and it really, really kind of hits you when you're up on that podium, and they're saying you're part of less than 1% that ever played college football going into this Hall of Fame. I mean, I really said, okay, this is not an about me award. This is about the guys who I played with over those 4 years, the coaches, the administration, the cheerleaders, the band, people who were in my class. They were a part of this because they helped mold me to be the young man that I was on the football field. And it's truly humbling when you think about the guys who haven't gone in. I think about the Dwight Stevenson, and I think Don McNeil,
Marvin Constant.
Marvin.
They should come up with the injury.
Like this, Cornelius Bennett and Derek Collins, because they had some phenomenal numbers. But when you start thinking about the older guys, I mean, guys like Andre Tippett was going in with me. Eric Dickerson. You think of other guys who played this game. It's like, wow, I'm just now getting in, and you got these guys who played, and you got these names. E.J. Henderson was going in, and I was a intern coach with the Minnesota Vikings when E.J. Henderson was a rookie in the NFL. So that tells you how many years I was before him. So I had played in the NFL and retired before he even goes in. So it's interesting, it's humbling, it's a blessing. But when you take it all in, it's like, wow, is this really, really happening? And once it happens, you start thinking, this is a moment that you'll never get again. I made some suggestions of what they can do in the future. And then I said, really, one of the persons who I really felt that should be in was Sylvester Croom, and his name came on the ballot. And now he's going in this year. So I'm very proud of the fact that my mentor and coach, the man who made me who I am and coach 6 back-to-back All-Americans, is finally going in.
All right, now when they come up with the Injured Player Hall of Fame, I'm gonna be a first ballot Hall of Fame.
You'll be your first ballot going in. That's true.
But EJ, what was it like just being around, Coach Croom and him being able to teach and instruct, and the man that he was, being around him?
Well, you have to go back and remember, we just celebrated in December the Legends, which is the first 5 classes of African Americans that was even recruited at the University of Alabama. So you're talking about John Mitchell, Willie Shelby, Woodrow Lowe, George Pugh, those guys being before me. Then your first position coach is one of the few black coaches that was even on Coach Bryant's staff. John Mitchell was on the staff a little bit before, and he went on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then Sylvester Croom, who was an All-American center, now is your position coach. And you're looking like, okay. And his first words to me, he says, I'm learning this job just as much as I'm teaching you guys. He says, all I want you to do is to trust what I'm teaching you, and we'll have a chance to be successful. And everything that came out of Sly's mouth, I believe, because when you have Coach Bryant, who's teaching you had Ken Donahue, our defensive coordinator, who I still think is the greatest defensive college coordinator that's ever coached the game. You had Bill Oliver, you had Jeff Rousey and Paul Crane coaching the linebackers. We had coaches now, believe me, we had coaches. Coach Bryant coached those coaches, and those coaches coached us. But to have a guy like Sylvester Croom push you, and I mean, when he pushed, he says, he's gonna do things to make you better. And it wasn't really until I got to my senior year when I even thought about playing in the NFL. He says, if you keep working at the rate you're going, you have a chance to be the number 1 draft choice. I said, of what? And I'm thinking of the United States Army. And he said, the NFL. And at that time, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, the NFL? He says, well, you played with Ozzie and John, Johnny Davis and Bob Crider and all those guys are in the NFL. You play with and practice against those guys every day. You don't think you can play with them? And that was the first time I even took it in consideration.
Wow.
So he was a mentor on the field as well as off the field. His father was kind of like the team chaplain who kept us grounded during the week, and Coach Bryant was trying to keep us reeled in. So to have Sly as a position coach was really a great honor because he was one of the first black coaches that Coach Bryant ever had. So that was another honor that I kind of just picked up on. I'm like, wow. And then to end up on the Game Day magazine, he told me when we were playing LSU, he says, there's only been 5 other guys who've been on that program by themselves. And he named them. I'm like, wow, you're talking about some serious company now. So
I got to tell you something.
Somewhat special. I didn't know I was that special.
I got to tell you something, though. You said you didn't know if I was even alive when you played. But you named one coach that was my actual coach in college as well, Jeff Rousey.
Okay.
I'm a lot older than I look.
A lot older. Okay. You're above 12 years old. I'm sorry. I got to.
I love it. No, man, don't apologize for that.
When you look at the guys who coached us, and you know Jeff as well as I do, those guys, they taught you. You went over every possible detail. You knew more about the other team than I'm sure they knew about their own future.
Now, the thing about those coaches, though, a lot of them couldn't coach in today's era because they'd all been fined, fired, and put on ESPN.
No comment.
Those were real coaches.
Guys that may incriminate me.
Hey, look, I seen it firsthand. Those were real coaches back then. Real hands-on coaches that made sure you got the job done right.
Well, the day and age of being politically correct and how we were raised, and in the era of the 50s and the 60s, you really, with the way that the kids are now, and I just sent my last one off to college this past year to the University of Cincinnati, and that was kind of a hard thing to watch my son and them get beat by Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. But that was history too, because my last bowl game was his first. So that was a 40-year separation between the two. But the way we were disciplined, we could survive a lot easier because of what our parents brought us through. And now, I got to speak at a Kappa convention, scholarship banquet. The village is gone. The way we were raised, how we were taught, the village that raised us. You get in trouble in school, you not only get beat by your parents, you got beat by every neighbor that lived in your neighborhood on the way home. And you was just saying, preach. Mom and my dad. Preach.
You
go grab a little small twig off of the tree, and they grab the tree.
Yes, so, my grandmother did that.
That's one of the things me and my wife go at it about. She was raised in Philadelphia, born in the 80s. I was born in Alabama in the 70s. You talking about something totally different as far as culture and being raised.
So, yeah, and it gets passed down. So now you're wondering how your kids are going to raise the grandkids. And I'm saying, don't bring the grandkids around me, because the way I am is the way I was raised. I'm going to love you up and down, but I might send them home. You might be calling the police. I said, if you call the police on me, I said, you better call them on yourself, because you're going to be homeless.
But that accountability, though, I appreciate it to this day, being raised the way I was raised, though. I really do.
And going back and guys, we all grew up in an era where there was a little more discipline back in the days, because now when you look at the school systems, when you look at how things are our kids really prepared for corporate America? Are we prepared to compete? I look at the way that the transfer portal has affected a lot of things. If I'm not happy where I am and I'm not a starter, I'm gonna take my talents elsewhere. Well, okay, you wouldn't have been able. You even open your breath like that to Coach Bryant back in the day. He just gave you a bus ticket.
Yeah, he would.
And might make you walk to the bus station, because that was a whole different mentality. You competed in order to survive. You had to learn how to compete. And competition is still the name of the game. Are you good enough to compete against people across the country who are trying to do the same job? You want to make millions of dollars, you're going to have to compete. Nothing is given to you. I don't care who you are. And some of these guys who are stars and been stars are learning the hard way once they get to the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball. If you don't bring your talents every day, somebody can replace you very easily.
Right.
And, it's a dog-eat-dog world, even with coaching, with Brian Flores and him filing a suit, because you look at the number of African-Americans who are playing football, 77% of the NFL are black athletes. You only have one black coach, true black coach. You have one Hispanic. And
why you had to put the true in there, though? One true black.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying 100%. There's a difference between 50-50 and 100%.
Hold on. I don't mean to cut you off. I am so respectful of you, sir, but I got to ask you a question. What do you think about Miami's coach when they were asking him those questions?
The Dolphins. That's a tough place to be in. But see, the thing is, and that goes back to what I'm saying. When you look at him, and say, he don't look like me, but okay. And that's one of the things that I think Coach Bryant has made a difference. When you talk about the legends, Coach Bryant made it a point. Even when he passed away, he put his money where his mouth was. When you have that Bryant scholarship, there have been over 1,500 children who are the children of former Alabama players who have been on that scholarship and gone on to get their bachelor's or getting their law degree or getting their master's because that man put his money where the mouth is. And when you look at, where coaches are now, Coach Saban has taken the mantle of bringing in more coaches who look like us, trying to get more administration who look like us because of the fact that if the hierarchy doesn't do it, nobody else will. One of the things I'm going to talk about on Saturday, I said, because we've lost the village, you look at all the millionaires and billionaires there are. How many black-owned hospitals are there? How many black-owned, schools are there? How many black-owned banks are there? You got all these billions, but what are you doing to help the community and help those, we always were taught when we were younger, help those. So, each one teach one. And how do we do that if we're basically teaching them to play a sports or if we're just teaching them to be entertainers, but not learning how to give back?
Can I add something to your platform when you speaking that you should push? Can I?
I'm listening.
I'm a firm believer that when guys suffer injuries, especially catastrophic injuries while playing for these schools, while they're making millions of dollars, that those schools should be responsible for that medical care for the rest of that person's life as it pertains to that specific injury. I just had to have total knee replacement surgery December 23rd. Nothing wrong with my right knee. It's perfectly fine. But the one I messed up at Alabama, and then you had this horrible doctor out there working on us. So I had to have total knee replacement. So now I'm sitting here with almost $10,000 in bills outside of my insurance from an injury I sustained while making a tackle on the goal line that allowed us to go into the SEC championship, then to go to the BCS Orange Bowl and make another $13 million. But yet I'm sitting here with $10,000 in medical bills.
That's a great point that you bring up, because one of the things I've had a chance to talk to Greg Burns about, I've talked to BJ Stabler about, is kind of doing something very similar to what the NFLPA is doing, trying to help former athletes. It doesn't have to be black or just former athletes who've played the game, be it football, basketball, whatever sports. Try to help them with career planning, financial planning, and even possibly medical support, because when you sacrifice your body on that field, that kind of distorts everything that you do in the future. You're kind of maybe on disability before you even get into a real career. And that's something that needs to be looked at, because the institutions are making billions off our image. Yes, I look at the NIL. Okay, that's one thing. But, there is life after football. There is life after you graduate from the University of Alabama or Ohio State. You notice I didn't put the D in front of it. You can put the D in front of the University of Alabama, but you can't put the D in front of Ohio State, because I can say that without the D. You can't say the University of Alabama without saying the University of Alabama. But there are things that need to be put in place for athletes, period.
Well,
Because
can we work on
you
this
have
one?
that argument saying that you're getting a free scholarship, you're getting paid, your school paid, but you don't understand the kind of commitment that you have to make, going to class, trying to do what you're trying to do, perform on the weekends, bring in money for your university that goes through various programs. You know, Mal Moore raised $80 million in a year. You know, and when you look at the new baseball stadium, you look at the new softballs, all that was built through the football program.
Exactly.
You know, the new facility. So those funds, there should be a fund, or there should be a compensation of dollars that can be put away to help support former athletes or athletes who are there, taking care of responsibilities that might hinder them in the future. God forbid they break their neck. Like there was a teammate that I had who broke his neck, and but he passed away not too long afterwards because of a boating interest. It was not football related, but there are guys who I've seen crippled, not being able to play. You look at Michi, you look at Williamson, both tore up knees playing football this year. Now they'll be able to play in the NFL, and they're stuck because they have such high stock. But let that be the third teamer going down on the kickoff on special teams and never get a chance to play in the NFL. What happens to that young man?
But if you can pay these coaches $5 to $10 million a year, you can pay assistant coaches $2 million, 1.5. You can renovate your facilities every 3 to 5 years when there's nothing absolutely wrong with them. You can afford to take care of these players who suffer catastrophic injuries, such as myself, such as Prothro, who will need that medical care throughout the duration, because that was surgery number 6 for me. And wow. I've probably spent well over $100,000 out of my own pocket to pay for my medical expenses related to that injury.
Those are great points, and those, like I said, those are things that need to be discussed because, like I said, it happens.
So when are we starting?
Right now.
I've been talking to Greg Burns about a possible position in administration, athletic administration, of something that could possibly look at some of these things. Because you can look at the Alumni Association, you look at career building. Yes, a lot of players maybe are they taught financial planning, because I don't want kids to get out there in the real world and they do make this money, and then next thing you look up, they're broke. Why are they broke? And you came from a major university who could have done that, because I worked in player programs with the Miami Dolphins. That's where this ideology came from. I was one of the first who helped create it, because I helped create the Rookie Symposium. When I got involved with drugs back in 1982, embarrassed the University of Alabama, the NFL, because I got convicted for a possession of cocaine. All this started teaching other things, drug and alcohol, abuse. When you start looking at anxiety and depression now, we need to look at those things, because a lot of things are affecting these kids. Now, there's more pressure on them. Don't know why, don't know where it's coming from. But there are things that need to be put in place. And Alabama, being one of the largest institutions in the country, can be a part of being at the forefront of putting these things together.
Yeah, so when you need somebody to come sit down and discuss this, you call me, because I got the bills to show how me getting hurt playing football for them while they're making millions is impacting my day-to-day life to this day. 20 years later, I'm still suffering from that injury, because again, I got almost another $10,000 in bills that I've received in the last 3-4 weeks.
Wow. So those are great points, and like I said, that's something maybe I need to go back and restructure how I have everything. But it's something that can be put in place. It's just, how do you go about it? How do you get the university to invest in those dollars? Is it something that you put in a escrow account, or you put it in? I'm trying to think of the word that they put scholarship dollars in all the time.
Escrow account, or putting it on their insurance. As long as you're using their doctors, it can still be filed on there, because Dr. Kane did my knee replacement. So it's still your team doctor, but I'm just getting the bill for it.
Like I said, the endowments, that's the word. You can put funds in an endowment that will continue to grow over the years and over the years to be able to help cover some of these things, because it's reinvesting in your investment and to try to pay out, be it you got hurt playing football, basketball, softball, baseball, the student athlete is a commodity that basically is a revenue generating entity that, that brings millions and millions and millions of dollars. Yes, we're talking about the likeness, but there's more than the likeness. There's the image. Going back to 1971 when Coach Bryant brought the first African-American athlete, you have to go back. When you look back, how many of those All-Americans were African-Americans? How many of those guys who have gone into the Hall of Fame were African-American? How many of those guys, basically, my thought was, how do we bring back the older generation from when I played to be part of this newer generation? Because I know Coach Saban, I don't call him Nick, I don't know him like that. I don't want to call him Coach Saban because he's earned that title of coach.
Right.
He does that for his current players. And I think it goes back to maybe Gene Stallings, but those pre-1992 players, all the way back to Coach Bryant, there's somewhat of a disconnect. We do get invited back from time to time, but how do we get to be more a part of what's happening with the current players? We were part of those 18 national championships. I'm part of 2. Should have been 3. John Mitchell was part of 2. So when you look at all those, especially the African American players, do they feel a part of what's going on now, or have we just been cast aside? Because
most don't feel a part,
and that's sad, because that's still current history. That's still living. These younger guys need to look at the some of the older guys. When I look at George Pugh and John Mitchell and Sylvester Croom, you talking about legends to me. I played, after some of these guys. When I think of Ozzie Newsome, I played with Ozzie Newsome, Johnny Davis, Tony Nathan, Byron Braggs. I played with these guys. But when I think of Woodrow Lowe, I still have I'm not even worthy. Woodrow Lowe, Willie Shelby, Wilbur Jackson. We just lost a young man who played with me for 2 of my years. Calvin Parker just passed this past week. Kind of hit me hard. The last time I saw Calvin was at the Legends thing. That was the last function that I saw him, and he was hospitalized 2 days later, and he never did recover from that.
I hate I missed that too.
We need to try to figure out how can we bring these things together, and those guys kind of help mentor these newer guys, if allowed. Not to say we're trying to tell you what to do, but we've been where you've been. We've done what you're thinking about doing, and it's kind of like doing not only an orientation but a symposium, trying to do this on a yearly basis or a constant basis. So it's not a one and done. One of the things about the village, that was an everyday hands-on thing. When you just speak to a person once, it's just like looking in the mirror. You look in the mirror, you forget what you look like 5 minutes ago. They need to have something that's going to be constant. They can remember. They can touch. They can go back and use it as a helpline. Say, hey man, you want to learn about financial planning? Talk to Walter Lewis, who basically is in banking. That man knows more about finances than I can even imagine. Jeremiah Castile is very well connected. So you're talking about guys who have played this game on every level, who can help the younger guys and this generations, because we've played in the NFL. We know what it's like. We know what it's like once you get through leaving this game. So there's a transition going from college to the pros, or from the pros back into regular life. And even if you don't make it to the pros, we still got guys who didn't play in the pros, but we can help you transition a little bit easier as well.
Now that's exactly why I want you to call me when you get to this position, because the thing, like I said, when I talk about these injuries and there should be help for these guys, I'm very passionate about that, because I know a lot of guys who don't have insurance or the financial means to fix these injuries. And there's a lot of guys out here that are hurting, can barely walk, and that are really suffering. But because of the amount of money that it takes to fix these injuries, a lot of them won't do it, because they know it's going to be the difference between them having their power on and eating and their family thriving, or them fixing an injury that they suffer from playing in college. It is a very big problem that nobody wants to talk about. And I'm sorry, but somebody's got to say something about it. And if it's got to be me, I'm more than willing, because again, I know how much money I've spent. I've been blessed and fortunate enough that I can afford to pay for it all, but I shouldn't have to. But there's a lot of guys, that's the decision that they got to make on a daily basis. Do I get myself fixed, or does my family eat?
Right.
I know we're running away with your show, Justin.
No, man. No, go ahead. I'm all for it. You know,
I mean, but that's an important topic, because when you look back
absolutely.
at it, you look at this has always been my perspective on it. If I don't make that tackle, we don't go to the Orange Bowl, we don't make $14 million. Y'all don't have the money to go build this new athletic facility, because that's where it came from. So, but I make the tackle, we go, and you get the $14 million. But I'm still left holding the bag. But that's the case for so many other people. But like I said, a lot of them, they don't have the money to pay for these injuries.
Right.
So they have to make day-to-day choices on how they're going to survive. Because like you said, not everybody makes it to the NFL.
You're absolutely right. And I'm glad we're talking about this, because like you said, no one's talking about this. So we're going to use our platform to talk about the things that aren't being addressed. So I'm glad that you guys are bringing this on the forefront right now. It's huge.
I mean, it's been well needed. It's been, as the old saying, it's been a long time coming. Now, how do we move forward? How do we get, the powers to be? And I mean, it will have to go up, truthfully, beyond just what Greg Burns is trying to do. It has to go up to the president. It's going to have to run up to the flagpole of the board of trustees to want to make that kind of a change. And the question is, are the board of trustees at the University of Alabama willing to really look at this, instead of just saying, well, let us look at it and talk about it and put it on the back burner and you never hear it again?
Well, sometimes you have to force people's hand, and I'm about ready to force some people's hands if they don't want to hear it. So, because there's a lot of people who feel the same way I feel, and something really has to change with this, because right is right and wrong is wrong.
Absolutely right. I'm with you, man. Real quick, Jimmy Clay had a question for you, EJ, a while ago. Do you still talk to Russ Wood?
I have not talked to Russ in a long time. I mean, I didn't get, I missed Mike Pitt's funeral. I got caught up in doing some things and was not able to do it. I know a lot of the guys got a chance to make it. Russ was part of that defensive end core that I played with for several years, and he was a key part of it. Maybe I would always call the quiet member of the group. Because he did contribute a lot, even though you didn't hear his name a lot. But I have not talked to Russ in probably over 30 years. And that's one of the sad parts about it. Once I went to the NFL, very rarely did I ever get a chance to come back to the university for spring games, or because I was always trying to get in shape to play. And then when I got in administration, the Dolphins or coaching, it took away from the time to come back to the university. I missed the reunion of the 78 team, the 79 team twice. The only time I got a chance to come back to the University of Alabama actually was when I was coaching in Central State, and we actually practiced at the facility. And that's when 1 year Mal Moore was the athletic director before he passed, and then the following year was Bill Battle, and I have relationships with both of them. And that's why this year was kind of important to develop a relationship with Greg Burns. I would love to see, some of these guys, and hopefully we'll be able to all get back together soon, because I know what's going to be in the making now is probably another reunion of the legends, but it won't be the first 5 years. It'll be the first 10 years. So it'll be from 71 to 81, guys who were part of those classes being recognized and honored, because we were still going through changes. At the University of Alabama, we weren't at the forefront, but I was at a point where Coach Bryant actually started mellowing, because the first time we ever wore white shoes was my senior year. We're getting ready to play Baylor in the Cotton Bowl. The first time we ever had our names on the back of our jerseys. So that senior year, we had the white Nike shoes, and the Cotton Bowl was the first time we ever had our names on the back of our jersey. And I said, wow. The old man has to be mellowing, because this would have never happened before.
Isn't that kind of similar to what you experienced, Bo? Was Saban kind of mellowing during your time there?
Yeah, same thing. We wasn't allowed to wear white tights until it was cold outside, and if we did wear white tights, everybody had to wear white tights.
Hey,
And
it's called team unity.
we didn't wear when it was cold. We didn't wear sleeves because we didn't want our opponent to think that we were soft. So we went sleeveless. Something that Coach Saban came up with, and it kind of made sense to me because once I got to the league, one of the defensive guys told me he didn't actually tell me. He was talking to another running back, and this was my second year in the league, and there was this guy first year, and he was like, "Man, you know what defensive guy thinks when we see sleeves on a running back?" And he was like, "What?" He was like, "We think y'all soft, that y'all easy to tackle, that y'all really don't want to play, so we always go after the ones that got the sleeves on." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So then I'm like, "It's you know how cold it get in Detroit. I'm out there, just I'm sleeveless. You know what I mean? Like you see all that action is going on, and you see the
See, Bo, you didn't have to. You were done fine until you got to the action. But, and this
All
is
that money, and you couldn't go buy lotion.
No, see when you
Cocoa butter, man, something.
when your arm ashy and you got veins coming out and you ripped up, they feel like
See what Bo's not telling why Coach Saban didn't want you to wear the sleeves too, especially as running back. You have no good grip on the football next to your skin. It's real. You don't feel it. So I know that's one of coach's points because even when I played in the NFL, I didn't wear sleeves at all. I love cold weather. And I remember playing against my roommate from college, Braggs. We were playing in the 1982 playoff game in Green Bay. It was snowing. The field was hard as a brick. He comes out in a T-shirt, cut-off T-shirt. He says, "Junior, you cold?" I'm like, "No, man, I'm not cold. This is the kind of weather I like." But half my teammates were looking like they were about to freeze to death. They beat us 41-16. But he fumbled the ball because O.J. Anderson had on those sleeves, and he couldn't control the ball. He fumbled twice. And it's like, I understand why you don't wear sleeves in cold weather. But then I got a picture of me about to kill Harbaugh. So playing against when I was with the Dolphins, they said, "Oh, the Dolphins don't play well in cold weather." I said, "I don't know about all the Dolphins, but I do."
Yeah. That actually happened to me my 8th grade year, long sleeves, fumbled the ball, we lost the game. Never wore long sleeves again.
So there's a method to some of these coaches' madness about winning. It's not always about the mental thing. It's just simple thing. And you can't wear lotion either, Stephen, because that makes the ball slick too.
Right.
We can't use stickum like your boy from the Raiders. You can't put all that stuff all over your arm and be stuck to the referee giving him the ball back.
Let me tell you something. If it was cold, I had a hoodie on under my shoulder. I hate the cold.
Before I get to this next question from the audience, we have an endless debate about which Alabama defense is the greatest of all time. 2011, 2016, 1992. But, EJ, your defense in 1979 pitched 5 shutouts. Only 2 teams scored 10 points the entire season. Can you talk about why your defensive unit should be talked about as one of the greatest ever?
Well, considering we didn't get a chance to play 12 games, get another playoff because we finished 44-4 in our 4 years, and it wasn't broken until the 1992 team actually went 45-4. But we had 5 shutouts. It was not easy to run against our defense. We had some, like I said, we had some dogs. You look at Don McNeil. You look at Marty Line. We had guys who were just beasts when it came to playing football. Brian Braggs, Warren Lyles, Thomas Boyd, Randy Scott, Jeremiah Castile. We had some guys who played the game because we played selfless. It wasn't selfish. It was selfless. It wasn't about who made the play. It was like, you do your job and we'll make the tackle. And everybody got to the football. We wanted to create turnovers. And we didn't like the idea of people getting across the 50-yard line on us. But one of the things that I said before earlier, we had the best defensive coordinator. No offense to Coach Saban. I know he's a hell of a defensive coordinator because he's calling all the defenses now. Gene Stallings was a defensive guy, who came from the Cowboys and coached me with the Cardinals before he came to Alabama. But Ken Donahue was a mastermind. There was not a scheme that we played against that we couldn't shut down. You talking about that great goal line stand the year before.
Hold on. So you're saying Pete Golden was not better than him?
I'm not touching that.
I knew he was going to work that in.
I knew Marvin was going to do it.
If Coach Saban, who has more rings on his body than I have on my entity, I think he knows what he's doing, and he's coaching the coaches the best way he can.
I just said,
Don't take the bait. Don't take the bait.
Don't do it, DJ.
Ben Donahue coached us to be one of the best defenses in the country. Everybody wants to talk about Oklahoma. They'll talk about Miami's defense. They'll talk about and I know the 92 team, the 2011 have some great defense. They do. They're all a part of that Alabama pride. The one thing that, up until Coach Saban, you really never heard a lot about Alabama's offense. They just,
right.
We had the wishbone until Coach Saban came. You never heard about Alabama's offense. You always knew that Alabama played great defense. Control the ball, control the chains, move, control the clock. It wasn't until Coach Saban got here and started opening up the offense. And I know he did that grudgingly. But now you look at, Alabama's offense, it's kind of hard to stop them. So the game has changed because of the way that the athletes have changed. They make the rules more geared towards offense now. I would have been thrown out half the games. I would have never All-American playing when I played because, believe me, helmet to helmet, I put my bonnet right in the middle of your chest, and probably the top of my helmet was hitting you right underneath the chin.
You had one of them forearm pads that went over your knuckles and went down to your elbow.
Well, see, there are other things that we could do too. You had head slaps and you could tape your hands and dip in ice water. But don't get me going back that way. But
come on back.
And Coach Bryant wouldn't even let we didn't wear gloves. Even though I wore gloves, I cut the fingers out because I got tired of cutting up my hands.
Tell the truth. You had that forearm pad with a roll of nickels in it. I know you did.
You know what? That wasn't a roll of nickels. Those were our forearms. Believe me, everybody listen to my phone. We got calves for forearms. No, we had good strength and conditioning coaches. But when you look at all those defenses that you want to consider great, all of them were great. I can't say, that's almost like trying to compare LeBron James and Michael Jordan. In each era, they did what they were purposed to do to get the job done to win the championship. And I can't add to one. I can't take away from one because they all played differently. They were playing different styles of football. We only played, 11 games in a year. That's including the bowl game. So when you playing now, you can play in a championship game, a playoff game, and then another game. Now you're almost getting into an NFL schedule. Mm-hmm. You're adding more games, more time, more chances to get injured. So when you look at a Michi or a Williamson, or guys who played before getting hurt in the next week of the season towards the playoffs because now you're adding games that their body's not prepared to handle. It's a whole different animal. So going back to your point earlier, yes, we need to put some things financially in place for guys who get injured, who are catastrophic injuries, especially because they'll never get a chance to play the game again, right. And they're going to have bills. A regular student's going to have bills because of loans, but an athlete, it's not like they can jump up and do what they did before because that livelihood was part of what they did every Saturday.
But what I always tell people, you can't compare academic scholarship to athletic scholarship. Nobody's showing up paying money to watch anybody solve math problems. It ain't happening. It's two different worlds.
Yeah.
I don't know. We need to contact the people from the law school to go to work for us.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's what we need to do. We need to hire people from the Alabama law school to go to work for us.
I need one right now. These bills still rolling.
To piggyback off what EJ said, like he said, college almost getting into an NFL schedule, and then you got to think about it. We go a month and pads with training camp, and then you go 15 days and springtime with pads, which is usually Coach Saban treat the spring like camp, and then you have 3 weeks of summer in June and 3 weeks of summer in July, and then that's that 4 month and maybe a week of contacting them. This week after week is just like a game after a game. But
EJ,
piggyback on top of that. When you get through playing your playoff game, you only get that game you play. Then you got a short window of time before you have to go back to class, so you don't get a vacation time.
A week and a half.
Hold on, no, EJ. But did you see that face I gave to him when he was talking about in camp? This camp where they in pass one day, and then they got 2 practices next day, and then they got one. We had 3 days back then.
Yes,
y'all these week camps. That ain't no real camp, man. We had 3 days in full pass and all 3 practices for 2 weeks.
We did a whole.
Y'all out there playing flag football for 2 weeks, man.
2 weeks in camp, man. Coach Saban, we were hit in the morning and afternoon.
Y'all can only practice two practices one day. The next day you can have to do 1 practice. The NCAA take care of y'all.
If he said we having a walkthrough, it's a full practice. It's a full
EJ.
Why?
All I know is you all never had a 135 play gut check.
Right.
Oh, God.
EJ. Mike Dubose was our coach who liked to fashion himself after Coach Bryant.
I will say, yes, and Nick is going to follow the rules as much as the rules will allow. But like I said, back in the day, it was a little bit different.
With no rules.
You didn't have those how many practices you can have before you had scrimmages. We got there in August. We had 3 days of what you call conditioning, and that was all shorts. And after that, it was full gear. And
whatever the coach wanted to do.
We were running a wishbone. So every practice, we had cut drills. We had zoot suits. And you all understand what a zoot suit is. A zoot suit is picture of a catcher in baseball. Okay? That was a full pad that went from all the way here down to we had those. And that was because we knew the running backs were coming to try to cut the edge. We talking about Tony Nathan, Johnny Davis trying to cut you every day in practice. And that was supposed to protect us. I'm like, that's trying to get us killed because you can't move anything.
The NCAA took care of y'all, bro. 20 to 25 years ago, we was on our own out there. Okay, we was out there tugging it. You were at the coach's mercy back then. Whatever they wanted to do is what y'all did.
This is true. So we made it a lot easier for you guys. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
We probably that era was probably why a lot of those rules were changed. But you know what? The biggest thing is though, you didn't quit.
Yeah,
Marvin, you didn't give up. You endured, and those things taught you valuable lessons that you can teach your kids. Teach friends. Because in doing what we did, there's a level of excellence. There's a level of commitment because it's easy to go home.
Very
hard. The hardest time to quit is that first time. After that, it gets easy. But
Marvin, real talk,
the coaches we had never would let us quit. If you quit, then you really, you want to go back home to where were you going to go? Back to your home? That was an embarrassment. So you just stuck it out, no matter how bad or how unfair or how unjust. I told you I was going to quit. I really was there after a 130 play gut check. Man, I was going to quit until Coach Bryant, I had a hissy fit in the locker room over there in the Coliseum, threw my stuff down. That was the first time I ever thought there was a Walmart bub that was sat in the locker room with a camera in it. And Mal Moore said, the old man wants to see you upstairs. And I'm like, oh,
Oh.
I'm up a creek. So I go upstairs. He had 2 offices. He had the front office, he had a back office. And when you sat in that chair, it was a sofa. And the sofa was very soft. So when you sat in it, you just kind of sank down in it.
Mhm.
But his desk was on a platform. So when he looked over that desk, it was almost like you sitting up looking at God. And I'm like, this man is about to chew me up, spit me out, and send me home. And he questioned, he asked me how many days. I had missed a lot of spring practice because I was playing baseball at the time. And he had walked out the locker room one day. He said, "You gonna play baseball? Or are you gonna play football?" I says, "I'm playing football, coach." He says, "That's all he said to me. He didn't say anything else." I talked to the baseball coach and said, "Thank you for letting me play baseball, but I got to go back and play football." And they moved me when I came back to the field. I wasn't even on first team defense on at defensive end. They had moved me to strong safety. And I'm like, oh goodness. So I'm 6'2", 217 pounds playing strong safety. And I'm just killing people back there, but I want to come downhill so fast. Forget about playing pass coverage. I'm trying to go down and make tackles. And, after about a couple of practices, he says, "You're a heck of a safety, but I need to get you closer to the action." So when we went back to after the spring game, I had 2 interceptions, had several tackles, a lot of knockdowns. That's when I had my first gut check. And that's when I wanted to quit. He said, "When I brought you back, I didn't put you on third team, which is where I should have been, because I missed all those practices." He said, "Well, you on first team, second team, or third team?" I said, "First team." He says, "And I put you as strong safety. I want to see what kind of shape you were in." He said, "But after that spring game, I felt that I need to bring you back closer to the action." He actually thought he took me out after 75 plays. And I had basically got a ripped jersey. I went back in there, kicked John Knox out, took his spot, and stayed in there and didn't know I was supposed to be off the field. And when he said, "Hell, I got me another EJ Jr." because John Knox, Mike Daugherty, and I all looked alike in uniform. And Sylvester Croom looked at me and said, "Coach, that is EJ." And he said, "Hell, I thought I took him out at 175. After 75 plays." And that time I wanted to really quit. He says, "I brought you here to be a leader. And when you start fussing at my coaches saying, 'Don't run at those other guys, run at me,' he says, I knew you were a leader. That's why I brought you here." And after he told me that, he says, you got anything you want to say?" I said, "No, coach."
That's awesome.
But that would have been the easiest time to have quit. And where would I have been had I not done those things? Alabama could have gotten another player to replace me because we had Mike Pitts, we had Wayne Hamilton. After that you had Emmanuel King, you had guys. So Alabama reloads because they bring in quality athletes. Coach Bryant wasn't afraid of losing any player because he always made that saying, "I can take mine and beat yours, and I can take yours and beat mine." And that was his mentality. Coach Saban feels the same way. He can take anybody's squad and make them into champions. The question is, are you going to buy in to what he's trying to teach you? He's teaching you more than just trying to win football games. That's what the typical Alabama fan does not understand.
Right.
But Coach Saban, Coach Bryant, those coaches are teaching you day in and day out is how to be competitive in life. When you walk on that field, you're prepared. When you walk into a meeting room, you're prepared. When you walk into that classroom, you're prepared. When you go to a job interview, you're going to be prepared.
Right.
You're not competing just now against Ohio State or LSU or Tennessee. You're competing against every kid that's trying to do the same job that you're trying to do. And you're trying to compete for a chance to take care of your family. Just like you said, you have all these bills. Are you going to quit? Or are you going to give up on it and say, "Well, do I pay this electric bill? How do I feed my family?" If you're not competitive, it's easy to give up.
Right.
It's easy to say, "Hey, you know what? It's easy to sell drugs on the street." No. It's easy to go to prison, or it's easy to kill yourself. And that's what this man is trying to keep you from doing.
Right.
Football is just the tool that he teaches you to do that. And it becomes a discipline, because the biggest problem that happens in any athlete, when you get through doing that regiment and you have all that free time, it's like, now what? And all of from, when you get through playing this game, it's like, wow, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest transition. And I think that's where older guys and mentors can help these young men, or young ladies, when they get through this transition, how do I go forward from this point?
That's
But
powerful.
Marvin, what do both had y'all doing for real though?
I mean, we were real life doing 3 days. We would have a morning practice, which would usually start around 6 o'clock in the morning, full pads. We would have a special team practice, usually around 11 to 12, full pads. We would have a night practice around 4:30, 5 o'clock, full pads. Yeah, we did legitimate 3 days. It wasn't no. I mean, man, you got to understand something. There was an incident where a group of unnamed seniors locked the doors to the locker room and said, "Oh, hell no, we ain't going back out there." And they had to send in a black coach to negotiate with said players to get them to unlock the door. Like, hey, man, this can't be legal, man. You can't be doing this to us. But it was bad, bro. It was bad. Yeah, Dubose, he was on one. It was bad.
Oh goodness.
If seniors lock the locker room and then they tell everybody, y'all better not take y'all ass out there either. It was a full out mutiny. They were like, nah, we ain't doing this no more. I mean, you think about it. Full pads, 3 times a day, full contact. Man, it was brutal, brother. It was brutal.
EJ, Anitra Arabia is definitely in favor of you going back and talking to the football team. So you have her vote to do that.
I would love that opportunity, and I think that's something that will could possibly happen in the future. That's one of the things I would love to do. I'm also in the process of still trying to coach football somewhere if given the opportunity, preferably on the college level, because I have so much passion to try to teach young men, and I've kind of targeted the HBCUs as much as possible because I grew up in an HBCU family, not the predominantly white institutions, as they would say, the PWIs, but there's a lot to learn, and there's still a lot to do in various communities where we can make a difference. When you look at Deion Sanders, I was coaching before Deion Sanders. I was coaching before Eddie George. You got Tyrone Wheatley, who's the head coach at
right.
Morgan State. Stump Mitchell, who was my teammate, was a head coach at a lot of these institutions, before. Keith Gorganas. There are a lot of guys who have played in the league who have coached at various places, but it didn't become all of a sudden had any notoriety until Deion came on the scene. And there's still things that there's disposition of funds that go to the HBCUs compared to the PWIs that need to be done. So I'm a teacher. I'm a mentor. I take everything that I was taught. I try to, give an opportunity. I have the passion to want to teach young men because there is life after football. Very much life after football. And this is just
and that's one of the things people don't understand about when I was speaking about these injuries. I coached for about 2 years, but because of my knee, and I couldn't stand up for a whole game. I couldn't stand up for practice. Like, literally, the impact of my injury directly impacted a lot of the choices I had to make in life. I wanted to coach, but I wasn't physically able to coach due to the injury and the pain that I had. So that's why, the things you talk about, people don't understand how much that game directly impacts a kid's life. I mean, because, again, for me, that one injury altered so much of the course of my future. I mean, even to this day, because I wanted to coach. I wanted to be like, you and a lot of these other guys who give back. But unfortunately, when you can't demonstrate a drill and you can't stand up for more than 10 minutes, it's kind of hard to coach.
I would say that it is.
Yeah.
I'm a little partial, but EJ, I'd love to have you here in Jackson with Coach Prime.
Well, I don't know. I'm at this stage of the game. I wouldn't mind coaching with him, but he has some great coaches. Matter of fact, one of the coaches that was with me when I was with the Cardinals under Gene Starlin's staff, I played against Dennis Thurman. Is his defensive coordinator. So that's another, a USC graduate who played for the Dallas Cowboys for years. So he has great coaches on his staff just as much as Eddie George has on his staff, and he's turning some things around. So there's a place for all of us to be able to contribute to try to help. I want to go where I'm needed and where I'm wanted. But at the same time, I'm always willing to talk to players, always willing to help the university any way that I can, because they gave me an opportunity. And I'm not the person I am now because of the people that I played with, played for, coached with, grew up with, as part of the university. But it's also trying to teach people beyond where we are and get them out of that box. Sometimes we have to destroy a comfort box. It's easy to get, do things. Well, I don't feel like. I got a son now who's training in Alabama, Northern Alabama, trying to get ready to see if he can possibly get drafted. My youngest is playing at UC, trying to fight for a starting position this year after being a redshirt freshman this year. They know competition, and I want to instill that into more kids. On the adult level, because they don't have to go home and get brainwashed by their parents and saying, "Oh, you the best thing since sliced bread." No, Johnny. Everybody doesn't get a participation trophy when you get to this level.
That's right.
You got to go out there and earn it. And if you're afraid of competition, you might want to go find somewhere else that they'll give it to you. Us is because you're gonna earn it where you are. Wherever I am, you're gonna earn it.
Well, I got one last question before we start to wrap up. How would you rank your block punt against Missouri in '78, intercepting that option pitch against Nebraska, which I heard some people don't believe you did, or that 59-yard pick six against Georgia Tech as far as your top plays? How would you rank those?
I would say the number one play, I would say the career would be the block punt against Missouri. Reason being, we were behind that game. We were still trying to fight to get into the playoffs. The national championship game. We had gone 11-1 the year before, losing to Nebraska, and we had beaten Nebraska a couple of weeks earlier. Missouri was known as the giant killer, so everybody that they had lost to, they were beaten pretty badly the next year. Very similar to what Baylor did my senior year. And we were down, and blocking that punt changed the momentum of the game. And I think that put us on that track to get to that national championship game against Penn State. The second one would be the interception against Georgia Tech. Anytime you get a chance to touch the ball and you can score, I would say that I'm offensive. I love offense, but I'd rather hit people than get hit. And then I would say the intercepted pitch, because people don't believe that thing can happen. But
you did it.
It was one of those speed things. But the block punt changing the game around, changed the momentum, which I think changed the tide of success for that year for us to win a national championship, would be probably the most important play that I've ever had.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, going down to our closing segment, Marvin, if you would, man, tell us what's going on with 40 Plus Strong.
40P!
Well, you can always grab a copy of the book on my website or Amazon. You can grab it from there. But literally everything in my day-to-day life, man, I've had to really just buckle down and focus on my rehab and getting back to normal, because total knee replacement surgery takes about 4 to 6 months to recover from. And with my knee being more than double the size it was supposed to be, I had so much bone cut out due to the arthritis and the bone spurs. I went through a lot with this surgery. So, I still got a lot of quad lag and other issues that I'm battling. So I really just had to focus on my rehab in order to try to get back to somewhat being normal. I want to be better than I was before, but, I want to return to the person I was before my injury. And in order to do that, it's just going to take a lot of work, and that's what I'm doing. I'm focused on that 2,000%.
Well, I believe that. Also, Bo, congratulations, man. I heard you have a little one on the way.
Yeah.
Man, that's what's up, brother. That's what's up. Congratulations on that,
brother. I'm sorry. I feel for you. You just begin your trail of sleepless nights.
Yeah, well.
Good luck to you, sir. I'm like EJ over here. Mine about to be 18, so we on
Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty. I'm free at last.
right.
First,
Grown and gone.
I don't had it in the first time.
I would say right now, start investing in Sam's and Costco.
Yes.
Yeah, we got
He's
it.
for real too.
Bit.
Hey, he for real
Yeah,
too.
it's for real.
Yeah. No. We stocked up already.
It'll never be enough because as much as
you
I entertain former players or kids coming over with my kids, I felt like Jesus because I was always feeding the multitude.
And a little bit of recruiting news. 5-star defensive back Jaleel Hurley has committed to Alabama. Breaking news on Touchdown Alabama magazine.
That was good right now. The one thing for him is, can Bama get some corners that can run with these receivers? Because the last corner Bama had that was running 4.3, 4.4 speed was Surtain. So can Bama get them some corners that can run with these receivers?
I got a new knee. They said I'm supposed to be back.
You got another year eligibility left.
Yeah. Really left. Let's do it. Come on, A-Day.
I got another year eligibility left.
Okay, Bo. See what Bo gonna do. Bo gonna have him and his child out there covering.
Y'all don't want me out there because I wouldn't do nothing but hold a clipboard.
Come on, you're good for one series, Marvin. Come on now.
Nah, I ain't never hold it. I'm gonna take your stats. I will be the best statistician you can find. That's all I got.
I can see it right now. They gonna call Marvin for a pass interference. Marvin said, I'm done.
I'll be good at the recruit analyst.
I would leave my helmet in the locker room just to let you know how serious I am about not going out there. Man.
Because I recruited the whole 13 and 14 class.
Yeah. Well, EJ, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us again. I love everything that you brought up tonight. And you talked about the things that we needed to talk about. It was time. And I appreciate you sharing your heart and your passion tonight and also sharing some great memories. And don't forget to call Marvin. But yeah, thank you again, man. For all the Alabama fans who are keeping up with you, can you tell them where you are on social media and how they can find you?
Well, I can be found on Facebook under my name. I do daily inspirationals through them, as well as on Instagram. And on Twitter, I'm found under ejunior_E. So those are the things that I do. I do daily inspirationals, try to inspire through the Word of God, and just do daily scriptures as well as life. I try to let the Bible come to life a little bit through just those inspirationals. But it's a joy, it's a pleasure. It's always good to talk to you guys. I love you, miss you. Look forward to doing it. Marvin, we definitely will talk because, like I said, I want to put that format together and bring it to Greg Burns and BJ Stabler and a couple other guys who I think will be interested in trying to figure out how can we improve.
And BJ's heard me talk to him about this on numerous occasions already. BJ already know I ain't playing no games when it comes to this. Because again, I know guys who have to make the decision between food or their own health, and that ain't right. That ain't right.
And Marvin, you know how these knees is over here, Marvin.
Yeah.
You know how these knees is over here.
So when you have to go for that knee replacement and then that rehab, that therapy, that physical therapy bill, man, I tell you, every day is something different in my mailbox. I'm like, man, I'm tempted to just go kick it down. Like I said, I can't even leave that. Then,
man, you got all that equipment in your house, man. You better use it.
Oh, I do now. But I'm saying from when I went the first month, I had to go to physical therapy the first month. I didn't have a choice, because I couldn't even walk. I couldn't do nothing. I was at, ground zero. So
working with Kevin?
Huh?
Was you working with Kevin up there at Champions?
No, I was going to Benchmark over here in Atlanta, but it's a process that takes a lot out of people mentally and financially. And again, it's just something that needs to be worked on because a lot of these guys, man, they just not in a position to do it. So,
man, how did you make it home after that knee surgery?
My wife drove me. She was driving my car. She scratched one of my wheels too. Boy, I was 38 high. I gave her a pass though.
I'm gonna be in Atlanta first weekend of March
You gonna be where?
in Atlanta.
Well, hit me up, brother. I'm here.
I got you.
All right.
All right,
Well,
guys.
all right, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Mr. Junior, hey, thank you again. We love you.
Gentlemen.
And we will have
It's
you back
always
on a lot sooner than later. So you're welcome back.
It'll be a pleasure. And if somebody was asking what is my IG, it's under Force 5439, which is my pro number and my college number.
All right. Find him,
All
guys.
right.
All right. Great night, guys. Roll Tide.
Listen, you
Roll Tide.
40. Ooh.